Recording started.
Yep. Thanks, John.
We're 54 people now, Yvonne.
Okay, and people seem to have stopped coming in at such a rate, so we'll start now. So I just want to say thank you everyone for coming, and huge thanks to Ed for looking after the facilitation on the IT side, and for today John Gooch is going to play Pippa's role to field the questions. So I would just like to, John, just test out the hands up with a couple of questions. So Ed and I have done quite a lot of work on getting the list of people who are attending up to date. So could we just have a show of hands, if you would, for anyone who hasn't been to this meeting before?
Libby says it's her first time.
Okay, and Jill, I think, did.
Amy?
Okay, all right, so that's just 3. That's not too bad. I added 27 people actually to the list who didn't seem to be on the list. Some people were there more than once, but you know, I hope we got everyone this week. And Ed and I are aiming for perfection next week as we sort out the data so that we've got everyone invited. So I was thinking a little bit about how these meetings had gone, and we're now on meeting 5. Meeting 1 was information for you. The feedback I got that it was quite bland, but really how our team was forming and how we brought groups, very different groups, like the churches, with James Blandford Baker leading that, and the parish council, and also High Friends coming together, along with a lot of other key partners. So information first, then meeting 2, we looked at your questions, and you had many questions, so did we. It's a topsy-turvy world, so we were working through those. And then in meeting 3, we evolved to start to become more collaborative, you know, as the volunteers came together and as the helpline came together. So we really were forming on the hoof, if it liked. And then we go to meeting 4, and that finalisation, led by Don Kelly, who's on the line today, on the volunteer liaison, meant that most of our streets were covered. And I got a feedback from someone I know really well to say, wow, you know, that's impressive that the whole village is covered. So here we are on meeting 5, and I hope, I'd like your feedback at the end in the chat line, but I hope what we have now is a more focused way of working, so we can really start to polish the way we do things around process, around volunteering, around this core group, so that we can deliver more quickly on the ground. Okay, so what I'm focusing on really today is the last item on our poster, which is sharing accurate information and advice. Because over the last week or so, we've had to make some tough decisions, and without that accurate, specific information, then things can, we found, go a little bit pear-shaped, and you know, and in some cases can undermine trust. So that's what we're going to focus on today. I'm in charge of the slides, so hold hard, everyone. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so slide 2 is our normal slide with an addition. So vision, I'll read it. Histon and Impington to create and evolve a coordinated and fully collaborative operational response to keep our residents and volunteers safe, connected and supported, working together efficiently at district, village and most importantly, local neighbourhood level to deliver the non-medical support that our residents need. Now I've added this paragraph and I think it will stay. I just wanted to explain who the High COVID-19 response team are and what we can do. So we're all volunteers, all of us, and we're working to support our Histon and Impington residents, businesses and groups. We're a team of individuals who've come together very quickly, and local organisations, missing the A, so a spell check there, sorry, who have come together to provide a response to coronavirus. We can only do this by listening to you and aiming through strong partnerships, village knowledge and expertise to meet the community needs. And as I say, we've got no authority really, except that we bring together some very powerful, I'm going to say powerful groups. So we do have the parish council and the communities from the church and High Friends behind us. But what we're really doing is aiming to work together and partner with everyone to try and make the decisions in this ever-evolving coronavirus world. So the purpose and agenda of today's meeting is a progress update, and we'll involve the team, I'll involve the team. Then a little bit about sharing accurate information and advice and how you can help. And then as normal, we will finish with your questions. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to pass over to Don to talk about the priorities of last week and where we've reached over the last week. First on the high streets and the volunteers, street coordinators adopting, and then on the coordinator guidelines that Don has started to put together. So Don, over to you.
Very good, thank you, Yvonne. So we've got 131 streets in the village, in the villages, I should say. We've got 131 streets covered by volunteers. We still need a coordinator for 2 streets, and the idea of the coordinator is to coordinate volunteer activity on their street. So there might be many volunteers on a street, but only one coordinator, and they would be the principal point of communication for the core team, and that goes both ways. So if the volunteers on the street have an issue that they want advice on, the coordinator can come to the core team, and vice versa. If there's information that we want to impart, suggest, issue guidance, that'll be done from the core team to the coordinator. So the 2 streets that we don't yet have a confirmed coordinator on are Luckett's Close and Clay Close Lane. But all the other streets have got volunteers and a coordinator. In some cases, the only volunteer is the coordinator, but we've got them covered. So what we've done so far, apart from coordinating all of that, which took a little bit of time, is I've now sent out a list to all the street coordinators as to who the other street coordinators are, so they can see who else in their vicinity is involved in the volunteer network and can seek advice or support from the adjacent street. And I've asked each of the coordinators to appoint a deputy, so that in the event that they fall ill, then a deputy can step in. Hopefully the deputies will never be required, but we don't know. And we are preparing a bunch of documents which are guidance or information. The first one of those has gone out, which is in response to the question that we've been asked the most often, which is, how do I contact all the houses in my street? So we prepared a document and we kicked it around for a while, and eventually we got it out yesterday. So that document went out yesterday, which should give people guidance as to what's expected in terms of how they contact all the houses in their street. So future ones will include a note that we're going to send out about transport, arranging transport to medical appointments only. We're not going to be arranging transport for people to go shopping, because the vulnerable people shouldn't be going shopping. I'm also we're going to do one about shopping. We're going to do one about food parcels. We're going to do, I'm just trying to remember the list, but I haven't got it in front of me. We're going to do one about people have been asked to collect pensions, and that's a difficult one. So we're preparing a note as to what people should do if they are asked to collect somebody's pension, and so on and so forth. So another thing we're going to do is we're going to send out a list of questions to the street coordinators, so we can get so we can get a feel of what's going on the ground, and also what do you want from us? So one of those questions will be: is there any recurring topic that you'd like us to issue a guidance note about? So that's kind of where we're at and where we're going. And I hope that's enough, Yvonne.
Don, there's
That's
a couple
lovely.
of questions
Thanks,
for
Don.
you. Someone thinks that Clay Close Lane is covered.
Clay Close Lane was covered until about an hour ago.
Okay.
Okay, and then on to the, thank you, Don, on to the food partial initiative. And Neil, I've added the village bank account as people are interested on how we're funding some of the things we're doing. So Neil, over to you. Is Neil on the call, Don? Neil Davis?
Yeah, I'm just going to mute his.
Can
Yeah,
you
he's
hear
on.
me now?
Yes, brilliant. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah. Georgina from the Salvation Army is going to be part of the this as well. Just to say that a village food parcel scheme is being launched this week, very much in partnership between HI Friends and the Salvation Army. This is to help single people, couples, or families
Lost you.
who.
We can't hear you, Neil.
Yeah, I can hear him.
I can hear him.
Did cut out, Neil, but you're back now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're lovely. Thank you.
Oh, nobody's ever described me as that. But there's
Oh,
always.
I'm sticking by it.
so I don't know how much you previously heard, but this is a partnership that is being launched this week to provide food parcels for single people, couples and families. There's going to be food parcels of two different sizes, one a standard size and a second which is for a family, and this is very much in line, the contents will be very much in line with that provided by a Cambridge food bank food parcel. And Georgina from the Salvation Army will talk about sort of mechanics of this in a couple of seconds. How it's being financed, well, it's being jointly financed between the Beer Festival and HI Friends. But I think we've been quite overwhelmed by the amount of donations that have been received already from the initiative, from Nick's Pallet Collection Initiative. There'll be a number of ways of requesting a food parcel. A street coordinator will be able to request a food parcel for someone, a beneficiary that they think is needed. So we don't want to, I know a lot of the time people are embarrassed about asking for assistance. So this can be proactively requested on behalf of a recipient. This can be done by a couple of ways. Emailing info@highfriends.org.uk or placing a request via the central switchboard telephone number, and there's now a food bank option, and that will go through to Georgina, start going through to Georgina later in the day. It's going through to me at the present, but Georgina's got a new mobile number. So, please feel free to request a donation of a food parcel for anybody in need in a community, and it can be provided on a weekly basis. Obviously, a long-term dependency is not to be encouraged, but we realise that in the immediate short term, there will be a weekly need, so that we will be able to provide this. Just Hi Friends have applied to the Cambridgeshire Coronavirus Fund for assistance for the food parcel initiative, plus a number of other initiatives, but we await to hear from that. And yes, we have opened a designated bank account into which donations can be received to help meet needs of the initiative, and generally to help people. and the High Friends have also submitted a grant application to the National Lottery for a number of initiatives that we hope to launch perhaps after the emergence from the lockdown, because I think we do need to think about the longer term impact on our community, especially the mental health. So we are beginning to think about sort of ways in which we can address the longer term needs. So I think Georgina will say a few words about sort of the mechanics of the actual scheme itself. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. Yeah, we've been overwhelmed by the amount of food being donated through the pallets. So thank you so much, Nick, for sorting that out. We've probably got enough for several families already sorted on our table here. We are taking precautions because obviously there's a risk of transmission of the virus through surfaces. So we're taking precautions at our end by storing stuff for a certain number of hours, a certain number of days before sorting it and handling it, ready to go out in food parcels. We have a couple of volunteers coming in to help sort and check dates, things are in date, and get them in the right places so that we can put food parcels together. So thank you to them. And yeah, we're still working out on a day-to-day basis what the demand's going to be, how we're operating. So we're quite flexible at the moment, but we have a simple system in place at the minute. I've just seen a question, how can you find out bank details if you'd like to make a donation? Is that financial donation or an actual food donation? If someone can find that out from Jane.
I think it's a financial donation. It's a common question that people have come up in the village who don't want to volunteer but would like to give money, and there is no current means of village people to give money to the fund.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll put the bank details on the chat screen in the next few minutes.
Could that then go on the village Facebook page, please?
Yeah.
We can send that out as an email as well after this meeting. So.
Okay.
No, I'm thinking about the other people that are in the village who aren't on the volunteers page. And is there any chance we could link a Just Giving account to it, Neil?
Yeah, we're applying for a Just Giving at the moment, but there's a little bit of sort of compliance bureaucracy that we need to just complete on that.
All right, thank you.
The Salvation Army in Histon has a Just Giving account. Obviously, the money won't go directly to just the food parcels, but that's on our Facebook pages as well.
And Neil, I've got a very specific question, and it's mainly because in Homefield, and I'm sure it's the same for other volunteers who've got the elderly and vulnerable in their care, food parcels don't help them. What they need is ready meals. And so what I'm currently doing, because Pippa said there's going to be a fund available, I'm buying 14 ready meals for one couple and 7 for another individual a week.
Right. Let me come back to you on that. I think we haven't really, we've only just launched the scheme, so I think we need to think about this. I think one idea that we have that if we do receive grant funding and sort of a fair number of donations, then we will try to be proactive in offering sort of treats in inverted commas to those living in the sheltered units, just to give them a surprise, or that we are to evidence that we are, the wider community is thinking of them, in addition to sort of all the street volunteer support. So let me touch base with various people after the call about that, but thanks for raising it.
Just with regards to individuals like that who might need ready meals rather than a food parcel, it would be helpful if referrals come in, if I could have a contact number to be able to contact the families involved, if possible. Some people might not want to do that. But then if they have specific needs, we can organise that. We're getting donations from all sorts of places. We have fridge space. We could do that kind of thing, depending on the individual's needs.
Can I make a suggestion around the when the money comes in, the Just Giving page and how it's positioned? It would be very useful, and lots of charities have had experience of this, where sometimes money comes in and you're not clear how to spend it. So then you either have to be, and you're in that awkward position of either giving it back or you don't know what to do with it as it moves on. it'd be really useful just to have some clarity that's on the page, what you're intending to spend it on, if you can, and a clear statement that says money left over will go to a kind of, I don't know, call it a village recovery fund or something where you can, or will be donated to the feast or something that means you don't have to be in that position where you have to feel like you're giving it back, and people can have some confidence on it. Just a useful way to think forward.
Can I just come back on that? I think that's a really good point. This is being organised through High Friends, and as you may know, High Friends does have the village wellbeing team, and whilst we get 50% of our funding from the parish council, we have to raise funds elsewhere. So we can, there is a ready need there. So but I think it's a very valid point, and we'll take it on board.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that, Steve. I think it is a good point. So thanks, Neil, because we found with our volunteers that mobilising our volunteers has been difficult. So, we may find the same thing happens with the money. So thank you for raising that. Okay, so on to our first, we've got 3 business continuity pieces. And Nick Wood, I hope you're on the call. If you could just talk about the prescription delivery and some of the further initiatives you've been looking at, which is under the next week's priority, would be really useful. Thank you. There he is.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, so probably most of you know that. Okay, so I'll give a bit of context for those who aren't aware. We've got street coordinators who are doing a fab job of, talking to local residents and getting things for them, probably food and medicine, that kind of thing. It became obvious when I was talking to the pharmacies that lots of vulnerable people were still going into the pharmacies to pick up their prescriptions and hadn't heard that there were street coordinators or didn't want to use them for whatever reason. And so we set up a hotline going through St Andrew's Church, which is the church number 320420 and then option 3. We're currently getting about 3 or 4 calls per day, and then in one hit picking up the prescriptions and dropping them off. The people answering the calls are Morag Goodwin and Hannah Sheeling, 2 honest and true people who can absolutely be trusted to do the right thing. So they're fielding calls. We can add more people to that hotline if we need to scale it up. There seems to be a bit of confusion caused this morning on the HI volunteers page from a post from Furs Surgery, who seem to have gone slightly off-piste and said that everybody should just call the 320420. So we need to clarify what the actual policy is on that, whether it's street coordinators or call 320420 option 3. I'm aware that quite a few of the street coordinators are probably also in the vulnerable kind of cohort. So might not want to be going and getting people's prescriptions, but they can phone them through to us as well, and we'll gladly pick them up. But I need to just clarify policy on that, because First Surgery sent something out that wasn't strictly true, but it's fine, we can do it, it's okay. But I don't want to be stepping on street coordinators' toes, but at the same time, we're there if you need us. So we're not fussy about who we talk to, just as long as we're getting the medication to the right people at the right time. We just don't want anybody missing out. Is that clear, or does anybody have any questions? Let me have a look at the chat.
There was just a question about Ethelred House and the meals that they're providing, and it comes from Ian Couch, who actually suggested to me in the street, thank you Ian, last week about Ethelred House, and you followed that up yesterday, didn't you, Neil? Nick,
yeah, I followed it up yesterday. So delivering hot meals via a group like the Salvation Army comes, as you would expect, with a whole load of bureaucracy, not from the Salvation Army, of course, but from government. Kind of, any food's got to be carried at a certain temperature in a certain type of box, blah, 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 can only be kept for so long. Etheldred have capacity to make 5 hot lunchtime meals every day for us, and they're starting that today at 12:30. I have definitely one person that I'm going to personally deliver it to. If there is anybody that anybody knows of who could do with some contraband food at kind of 1 o'clock, 1:30, something like that, I'd be happy to drop them off and take the rap in court later if we're doing anything wrong. I'd like to make sure that people are eating who need to eat, rather than us battling government red tape.
And Nick, just in terms of the call, because we're channeling everything, we're going to talk about that later through our central helpline. What options should they be calling?
They can call me, or they can, if they call the 320-420 line, option 3, if anybody knows of anybody who could do with a hot meal. And this isn't necessarily people who haven't eaten for a while or are struggling to make ends meet. This could be a single parent who's got a couple of kids cooped up with small garden who just wants a break from making a meal for a day. You know, it doesn't have to be somebody who's absolutely on their knees, but somebody who would appreciate a little bit of help. So at the moment I have capacity for 4 of those meals per day. The junior school, I was talking to Mrs. Lorimer yesterday, the headmistress, and the junior school have offered to help. We're not entirely sure what that help would be, but their kitchens are running on a skeleton staff, but they're running at very low capacity. So Helen Lorimer is happy for us to use the junior school equipment if we needed to scale up on making hot meals. Also, Mark Andrews at the Histon Chop Shop has offered to donate some meat. He was non-specific on the type of meat or the quantities, but there's lots of people around the village and the businesses who are prepared to help more than they're currently helping. So if we find that there is a need, again, that's something we could potentially scale up. Will we be meeting all health and safety guidelines? Probably not, but again, I'm prepared to take the rap for that if it means that we're getting hot food to people who need it. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I might be going slightly maverick here, but desperate times need desperate measures.
Okay, so thank you. So there's some suggestions on the chat, and there's also Lucy Robinson. Thank you. We'll sort that out with FIRS. I think we're on the same page. I think it's just communication. Okay, so let's move on to our business continuity 2, which is the farmers market. You may know that. Thank you, Nick. You may know that with the farmers market, there was a lot of email exchange. Well, a lot of posts on Hi People, we have to say that as a core team, we asked why it was happening at all. That was the first question, and it was articulated well by one of our core members yesterday as we met. But actually, what we're finding is that it's very difficult to change behaviour, and people are working to make sure that things are as safe as possible. And after talking to the organisers, I talked to the organisers, and Pippa talked to the environmental health via her district councillor role. Environmental health had approved the farmers market, and we work with the farmers market, and also thank you to the Baptist Church, because they also worked to make sure that it was as safe as it could be, and that the one-way system as per Tesco's was in place, that there were marshals, and Tesco's donated the tape for marking out the queue. They also donated the footprints, X marks the spot, please stand here. And they also donated 2 large canisters of alcohol-based hand sanitizer. So all of our businesses are working together to make sure they're as safe as they can be. I'm going to just go on to the virtual cafe. 2 weeks ago, you may remember that Cambridge Building Society had a 4-hour queue, and there were over 70-year-olds in the queue. I was alerted to it by Nick, so thank you for that, Nick. And we then had water donated by one of the local businesses, in this case the Barley Mow, to give to the over 70s who were flagging in the queue. The next week, we were able to prepare much better. Water was available, and we were talking to people in the queue as to why they were there. Now, the managers from Cambridge Building Society got in contact with, in this case, me, And what they want to do now is come to our virtual cafe, which is Zoom, available almost 24 hours a day. Ed will correct me on this. And then make sure that what we are doing, that everyone knows the options for online banking. So you may not know that the Cambridge Building Society do postal service, they do telephone service, and they also do online. So what they're going to do is come to the virtual cafe. We're going to use our IT experts to support people trying to get onto that virtual cafe so that they can explain their services. It's going to be focused on the people who were in the queue, so that as a third step, I'll go through the first two again, we begin to dissuade people from being on the streets. So the other thing they've offered to do is if people can't or don't feel comfortable on the virtual cafe, which as I say is really Zoom, they will be phoned separately by the Cambridge Building Society and they will have a one-to-one discussion. So step one, there was a 4-hour queue. No one could have predicted that, or perhaps we could with hindsight. Step two, we were ready to marshal the queue and understand the problem. Step three, now the Cambridge Building Society, having understood the problem and worked with us as a team, are now looking to try and dissuade people off the streets. We couldn't do it any other way, or we didn't feel we could, because we do not have the authority to tell people to get off the streets. All we can do is persuade. The farmers market, that was also step one. On Thursday, we didn't know they were coming. And we can talk about that a little later in another of the slides. Step two, we made sure it was as safe as it could be. We followed government advice and we talked at length, or Pippa talked at length, to South Cambridgeshire District Council and the environmental health. Step three, what we now intend to do is look at better ways to dissuade that physical contact. And I have already an email from the organisers of the farmers market to look at how they can do it in an even safer way going forward. And then I just want to go back to prescriptions. We've been working with Furze House Surgery. Yes, our communication hasn't been as elegant as it could have been, but what we're now aiming to do is get people out of the chemist using a focus service. We started with street coordinators, so as fewer people as possible can go to the chemist and the chemist can get on with the job. So we're taking it one step at a time and are always comfortable for any questions. What we have learned as a team is we need to be more specific so that when we do post that anything is happening, then you can ask questions based on the facts. So I've covered business continuity 1, 2, and 3 there. I'll just take a couple of minutes break in case there's any questions on the chat. John, any questions? Any questions people want to ask?
There's nothing that hasn't been covered, really.
All right.
Yvonne,
Thanks,
I will
John.
pick up on the HI CAF. It is usually predominantly open between 8 and midnight. It does fall off because of Zoom's systems do like to update at midnight or just after midnight. But we do try and keep it running 24/7 if we can. But it will always be open from about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning to about midnight.
Lovely.
There's a
Thank you,
question
Ed.
that's come up, which is the one to do with the confusion factor. Are the coordinators continuing to pick up prescriptions, or should everything go via Nick?
No, absolutely not. So the central line is actually now Nick Plus on for us. So behind the central line now, as Nick says, it used to be just Nick, and when we didn't have a central line, it was his number. Now it's Nick plus Hannah plus, what was the other lady's name, Nick? Morag, okay, yeah, thank you, Morag. So that way, we're scaling up our operations, we're scaling up our ability to answer phone calls, and then we get fewer people to the chemist.
I don't
And
think that's
from-
answered the question that the person's asked is, should street coordinators now not pick up prescriptions?
The problem with street coordinators picking up prescriptions is, as Don said, we've got 131 of them. So we decreased it. So I'm okay if you want to go via street coordinators, but by going to the central line, and Hannah, yes, you can definitely talk. Thank you for asking. By going via the central line, we can identify the need and we can minimise the people. So, Hannah, do you want to go ahead?
So, Morag, you can correct me here from the calls that we've been taking. And to be fair, it hasn't been very many that have come through 320, 420. But the people that I've been speaking to sort of want to give either their neighbours or their street coordinators a break, which seems a lovely thing to do then. They can use their neighbours for something else, and if they want a prescription collecting, then they can use us. And we certainly have capacity to do more. So I think from my point of view, if street coordinators are happy to do it, they can carry on doing it. It's nice that it's somebody on your road, but if you want to share the load, then we're here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hannah. And yeah, we are being pragmatic. That's the point about this. We're not here to change everyone's behaviour, except dissuade people that, in the at-risk groups, they don't have to be on the streets. So we're providing that support. The good thing about going through the helpline, and I did it for a prescription for my husband at the weekend, is then you can identify the need. Because if we don't do that, then we're not sure how much we need to support our team. So if you are a street coordinator and you are picking up prescriptions, we will provide a method for you just to escalate that for us. So we do understand the need around that. So horses for courses, Rachel, absolutely. Jackie Hodson, can I ask here, please, along with food, a neighbour asked if any need for toys for children as they have had a sort out. Jackie, we'll come back to you on that, but great suggestion. Okay, and Elaine, Elaine Farrell, we're still working on the payment. We'll come back to you. That's one of the priorities for the core team. And for Homefield, you go once a day. And again, I agree with Hannah. I have a neighbour in my street who said she's now pulling her hair out because she's actually made herself available to too many people. Share the load. And this is one way of doing that. Any other questions? So a lot on prescriptions. We'll keep you posted on the plans for the virtual cafe and the Cambridge Building Society, which will happen tomorrow at 11:30. So just quickly to go through the priorities for next week. Work with what we're asking for your help with today is to work with the street coordinators to identify the community need. That was as per the prescriptions. We're improving ability to deliver to that immediate need by collecting data from you, and more on that. We're developing further FAQs and guidelines. Don covered that. And Neil and Nick covered the further initiatives. Okay, let's move on. Oh, let's try and move on. Okay, so this is what we need your help with today. So we need your help to identify the immediate need. I'm repeating myself. You all are the eyes and ears and, oh, another spelling mistake. Sorry, you can see this was done early. And the understanding of Histon and Impington. Your questions and observations are crucial for highlighting the need for information and support. We've been collecting evidence, and I'll show you that on the next slide, to support the need. We need your focused help, and that's why the central helpline and escalation is so important. So what we aim to do is give you one clear escalation point so that we can understand your observations and concerns. So one, you've got your street coordinator. Don called that out. Two, you've got the central helpline, and a number of street coordinators are using option 2, the high COVID-19 line on our central helpline. We also have an email service. And then 3, and there's one point of contact. So Don has said many times that he's the point of contact for volunteers, Joe for help, and then we also have one point of contact for business, which is Nick. And we will put those behind our central helpline with Ed's help, so that you only have to remember one number. And then we've got the High COVID-19 website, where we will be storing all our public information, our FAQs, etc. And just in case you wondered, all of the above will have a support team to ensure continuity of service. So that's the deputies that Don was talking about. Moving on to I won't read this all out, I'll share the slides. But moving on to what we need again from you, please say it. If you see it, say it, sort it. So I've used a phrase that many people use, but unless you tell us, we're not going to understand the need. So some of the problems that came up that we were aware of over the last week, ATMs are a health risk. So there's a table now holding alcohol-based hand sanitizer made available the next day. That public health sign will be put on the ATM. And there's a longer term plan to talk to the managers at the local businesses at Barclays and also at Tesco's. I have to say that the first day the table was there, it was nicked. And so we're following up on that. So what we put there out are things for your safety. So again, that was a shame. So please do read this and take a look at it when I share the slides. And these are all types of things we want you to raise as you go on your walk, as you do your shopping, so that we can identify the problems. I just want to read you 8 and 9. This is my favourite story from last week, and it's a bit off the wall. We got a call, we got an email, Morag, I hope you won't mind me saying it was from you, saying that Budges needed rehousing urgently as their owner was in hospital. Within, I don't know, Morag, was it 6 hours, 3 hours, Joe Roach, thank you, and on the central helpline had rehoused those Budges same day. So, let us know what you need and we'll see if we can help. And then the Cambridge Building Society, the steps, they extended opening hours. That's what you asked for. Secondly, the co-op provided water for the older people and to start conversations about why they were there. 3, Tesco provided Q-tape and X marks the spot for social distancing. And 4, Cambridge Building Society requested to come to our Histon and Impington virtual cafe to give people online options so they don't have to go out. So thank you to all of you who are escalating your observations and concerns. No question is a silly question. No opinion is too hard to handle. We're happy to hear it. Please contact our central helpline, 320-420 option 2. Monitor our High COVID website and look out for communications from our team. There'll be a survey coming out tomorrow so we can monitor the trends and the demand. And of course, you've got your one point of contact in Don for volunteers, in Nick for business, for the parish council, for Chelsea will also support for volunteers, so she's adding to the list, and then for Joe Roach on the helpline for any help. Whoops. So I just modified the message. It's the same as it always can be. And here's feedback with the Budges in their new home. There's only 2 of them, but you can see there's 2 friends there. And I understand there's 18 more Budges. So we've got 20 Budges now, all in one home. And we'll make sure that the lady concerned is kept up to date in terms of how her Budges are doing. And then there's one last slide, or there's the question slide, and then there's one last slide. So any questions? Okay, there's questions about, should we be buying cigarettes for the vulnerable? I think that's one to discuss and take offline. We did have the same discussion about alcohol, but we haven't come to a resolution yet. So we'll take that offline and come back to you. But if there's no further questions, there's lots of suggestions which we'll make sure we take up. James, you're going to do the last slide for us, James Manford Baker.
Yep, just unmute myself. Can everyone hear me? I think that's okay. Yeah, first of all, just to say, just pick up something that was said earlier. If there are financial needs of people, the Histon and Impington Town Charity also has funds available. They've always been available for those in need. And if you want to make an application for that, or you want to let us know about somebody who you think would appreciate that, then please just email me, james@standrewshiston.org. I'll put it in the I'll put that in the chat, and that would be fine. And we'll make sure we respond to that. So the other thing is just to talk about. I've had a conversation with Yvonne today about the clapping for our carers, which has become a really fantastic thing around the village, and not just supporting the NHS, but actually seeing our neighbours is a rather lovely thing, and it's been a really good thing for the community. But the sadness now, and I think particularly the reality of this virus, is beginning to hit the village with several people dying of the virus, and the funeral situations are really, really difficult for people with very restricted numbers able to attend. And you can appreciate that that's really hard for grieving families. And so one of the thoughts that we had is that it would be wonderful if the community would express their respect and solidarity with those who've lost loved ones. And the easy and obvious way to do that would just be to come out a couple of minutes before 8 o'clock on a Thursday and just spend a moment outside our homes in quiet before coming to 8 o'clock and breaking out in all the extraordinary noises that we hear from pots and pans and hooters, and as well as all the clapping. That's certainly Church Street experience. I expect yours is similar to mine. But just a moment or two of respect for those in our own community and for their relatives who are grieving. And I think that would be a wonderful thing to do. And it means, I think it says a lot about the health of our community if we can do that, just to show respect for a minute or two before 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. So I commend that to you as an idea, and I hope that that's something that people will be able to pick up. Thanks.
Right, thank you very much, James. So look forward to seeing you all out on Thursday evening. Just before we go, just to say there will be a survey coming out tomorrow, so that we can pick up on what the need is, as I said. So that will come out from the core team, led by Don Kelly. So look out for that. And Don, we're aiming to get 100%, aren't we? After we got 50% last time. So if we can get 100% response, that gives us a really good feel as to what you see as important in the village. Exactly. Don, anything you want to add?
Just to add that is going out to street coordinators only.
Okay.
Yes,
all right.
100% response from street coordinators would be marvellous.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So I'll let you go. We're 10 minutes early, so I hope this has lived up to a more focused meeting. Any feedback that you're sort of feeling now, do put it in the chat line so we can pick up on it. But thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, James, and look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks a lot.
So Yvonne.
Goodbye, and thanks for the meeting.
So Yvonne, just to understand, Pippa will have to save out the chats and the meeting stuff because it's in her account. So I'm going to stop recording now, okay?